I mean, it's okay, but it's a little weak.
Or see if we can adjust it. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order at 4:30 p.m. And before we begin this meeting, we'd like to pay honor and thank our community partners of the First Nations, the Anishinaabe. And we have a very, very full agenda tonight with some big issues. So I'm going to ask all of council to organize their thoughts on each issue and speak once on each issue. And no one will speak twice until all the other councillors have spoken on the issue, us moving along. We do have a pretty full addendum, which I understand some people didn't get because of the power outages. It includes correspondence on the public meeting, the two issues, the one on for the marina on Rose Point Drive, and the other correspondence on the Stoneman Severance. Also on item number 8 is correspondence from the Tri-Lakes ratepayers basically endorsing what the staff recommendation is, and some correspondence received on the Ferris Road issue, also item 8. And bylaw, item number 10, we have an extension of the covenant agreement and the appointment of a new building official. Also enclosed, there's the addition of some verbal information from staff on the Barota minor variance application. So I don't think any of these items in addendum change anything. They are background correspondence, so if you get it tomorrow when your power is back on, it'll be good information. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof on any of the items tonight? Thank you. Then I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular and closed session meetings of Council held on November 15th, 2021 as circulated. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I will second that motion.
All in favor of approving the minutes? Councillor Collins. Okay to Councillor Collins, because you're on the phone, I'll try and call you out for each vote.
Did you hear me?
I didn't hear you, but now I do. So.
Okay, yes.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matters. Consent application number B 2021-0019-F for 2565234 Ontario Inc. and consent application number B 2021-0020-H and B 2021-0024-H for Stoneman. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner?
Yeah, I move that, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Osborne.
Second, Mayor.
All in favor of going public meeting? Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. Okay. Council will now hold public meetings for proposed consent applications. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Council of the Corporation of Township of Seguin in respect of a proposed consent does not make written submissions to the Council before it provides or refuses to provide a provisional consent, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of Council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Purpose of consent application number B, 2021-0019-H for 2565234 Ontario Inc. is to create one new residential lot on the subject land. Severed lot is to be approximately 1.1 hectares in size and have an approximate lot frontage of 50 meters on Rose Point Road. Retained lot is to be approximately 2.9 hectares in size and have a lot frontage of 200 meters on Rose Point Road. Proposed retained lot is to contain the existing development on the subject land, Georgian Bay Marina, and the severed lot is to be used for a future residential use. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on November 22nd, 2021. Notice was therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has anyone registered to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application?
John Jackson, agent for the applicant, has registered to speak to this application and is present.
Okay. And has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
Correspondence has been received from Donald and Karen Sanderson and Andrew Beattie.
John, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Good afternoon, evening. Yes, I was approached by the owners of Georgian Bay Marina, Todd and Lori Moore, who have been operating the marina business for quite some time, and they are looking forward to a future succession plan, which would allow them an opportunity to create a retirement home and sell the business, so that they decided there was an area of the property that really was physically apart from the marina operation, which was along the southern boundary on a high ridge, and that the proposal was to create this future residential lot that they, after retiring from the business, could construct a home. They would have access off of Rose Point Road, partly along a small right-of-way, but still on the municipal land where they could encroach or access their property. There's been a number of due diligences taken place. They've had the property reviewed for servicing capabilities and found that to be satisfactory. There were a number of neighboring concerns. We did reach out to the neighbors. I know that the immediate neighbor has had some issues with the marina in the past. We've attempted to and we will attempt to resolve any of those issues. There's an alleged sort of near dock, marina dock existence that the neighbors are concerned about, and I know that Lori and Todd have agreed to try and resolve that. I saw the submission by Mr. Sanderson earlier today. It's sort of some of the continuing problem, but I don't believe it's relevant to the application before council. Staff has recommended it, and we're appreciative of their assessment of this. Unless there's questions, Your Worship, we're hopeful that this can move forward.
So the question of the marina owners accessing their property over the neighboring properties, has that been resolved?
Well, not if you read Mr. Sanderson's submission, and if you look carefully at the proposal, we are creating a lot that is pulled back from the water, so it will not have any Georgian Bay water frontage. The issue, as I understand it, is that there's a concern that the dock that is the marina dock that is adjoining Mr. Sanderson's property encroaches to some extent over that line. That needs to be sorted out regardless of this application. I've seen the bars, and it's very, very, how should I say, it's close, but I couldn't judge. Probably need some kind of surveyor's report, which we could probably do as part of this consent application to confirm where those lines are. There are water lots involved between these properties, so it's very precise, can be determined exactly what the alleged encroachment is if there is one. I'm not saying that there is or isn't. It just needs to be something that the neighbors work out.
Councillor Coles, you have your hand up?
Yes, sorry, I couldn't get off mute. Yes, I understand, John, that there is an issue of encroachment on the part of the marina against the Sandersons, and they are quite unhappy and wish that to be resolved before this consent is resolved. And that being one issue, the other one is the issue of access. The parties, according to the BDs, nobody can quite identify where the location for the driveway is for the new lot, and they're concerned about its crossing the BD's property. So there's two issues. One is the encroachment on the Sandersons' property, and the other is the BD's crossing the BD property to get to the new lot. Do you have a response for that?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Your Worship, the area where the driveway would access this new residential lot is directly off the municipally owned property, and we sent a sketch to show that location, and I think that Mr. Beatty's been satisfied with that. Okay. I believe so, and that was done through the outside planners that were dealing with the application. With respect to Mr. Sanderson, again, I think it's something that you have to kind of hone in on, that very, very precise location of where the water lots meet the shoreline, and I'm pretty certain that the proponents here would be happy to have that defined very clearly as part of the consent going forward. I'm not so sure it's totally relevant. I think this issue has been ongoing, and if it means standing it down, Councillor, I don't know why that would be a problem for them, because I think they want to be good neighbors. So this issue has got to be something that's got to be resolved regardless of this consent.
Okay, they talk about it being a disregard for stewardship, Seguin. That was one of the comments in Sanderson's letter. So it sounds like it's more than a property boundary issue. It sounds like there's other issues along with that.
Yeah, and I guess as a planner, I just want to keep on topic. So okay. if it's about this sort of nexus of where water lots and terrestrial boundaries kind of meet, we can bring those facts to council on that for sure. And as I say, regardless of whether or not the consent was to proceed or not proceed, those things need to be resolved.
Okay, thank you.
I can maybe just add.
Yeah, I can see Councillor Moffat has his hand up, but I'm going to ask Jamie Robinson to speak to this as our planner. Go ahead, Jamie.
Thank you, Worship. If I can just add, there were the comments that were provided that were in the agenda package. My staff has spoken with the Sandersons today and had an opportunity to review the comments with them and the details with the application. It's my understanding that the the potential concerns related to the encroachments have been resolved, and that from the driveway location perspective, that's also been resolved based on the anticipated location of the driveway. However, I don't have anything in writing to that effect. If it would feel make council more comfortable to have something in writing, then by all means, we could defer this application and consider it again at the next meeting.
Mr. Moffat, you did have your hand up, but you don't now.
Well, yeah, no, Jamie kind of addressed it, just that it was Mr. Jackson's comments. We have an email from Andrew Beatty dated today about the driveway. So it seems that maybe there's some stuff in play, and that's kind of what Jamie has indicated. So I think I saw Councillor Cole shake his head yes on the, would have to have some, or prefer to have something in writing to get it, to have these things resolved before we push it forward based on Mr. Robinson's recommendation.
Okay, do we need a motion?
That'll happen after.
Okay, so we have an option to defer after the public meeting. So if that's the interest of Councillor Coles, then when we come out of the public meeting, you can make a motion to defer, and we can ask Mr. Robinson to get the details spelled out in writing prior to coming back to council.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And I'm going to move on to the next one. The purpose of consent application number B, 2021-0020-H and B, 2021-0024-H for Stoneman is to create 2 new lots and 1 retained lot as follows. Severed lot is to be approximately 2.6 hectares in lot area and have an approximate lot footage of 212 meters on Highway 141. Severed lot number 2 is to be approximately 13.3 hectares in lot area and have an approximate lot frontage of 20 meters on Sandy Plains Road. And the retained lot is to be approximately 16 meters in lot area and have a lot frontage of 160 road. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of this meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on November 22nd, 2021. Notice was therefore considered to be provided in accordance with requirements of the Planning Act.
Anyone registered to speak in favor of or in opposition to these applications?
John Jackson, agent for the applicant, and Darren Ashford have registered to speak to the applications. Mr. Jackson is present.
Has Township received any correspondence with respect to these applications?
Correspondence has been received from Catherine Chapp, Christina Jennings, and Darren Ashford, Susan McEacher, Alan Norris, Stephen and Jason Wilson. A petition signed by various individuals, Bryce and Cheryl Edwards, and Jim and
Okay, and I'm going to ask both Mr. Jackson and Mr. Robinson to speak to this. I do want to point out that the motion before you is only a severance. Any talk of subdivision or anything like that would go before the public due process for any development. So the only thing we are talking about today is severance of 1 lot into 3 individual lots. It'll create 3 tax bills, but there is no discussion of how it would be subdivided. If it would be subdivided, nothing may happen. So that's important information for all of the public who may be watching, is that all we're doing today is the severance of 2 lots. So I'm going to, before I acknowledge the question from Councillor Osborne, I'd like both Mr. Jackson and Mr. Robinson to speak to this. John, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you again, Your Worship, Council. Mrs. Stoneman has this property in Humphrey Village, which she's owned for quite some time. As Mrs. Stoneman is getting up in years, she has 3 children, and she wants to be able to pass along the land which she believes to be relatively fairly distributed amongst those 3 children. So one son is proposing to get the house and garage and shop on the highway, and the two daughters are going to split the balance of the vacant lands as their inheritance, so to speak. I think, Your Worship, you've caught the actual fact of the matter is that this transaction is not going to produce any development. We don't know when or if ever it may be developed, but clearly as part of the settlement area of Humphrey in Seguin Township, it's an area that's destined to some point receive development in the way of residential uses at a higher density, if you like, than typically rural lands outside of settlement areas. However that will look. What we did, and I think rightly so, is produced kind of a concept plan that if it ever was developed, how would it be developed? The emphasis is on concept because planners like to know what really is going on. So in the interest of not really hiding anything, we produced the concept plan, and the notion was that this severance could go forward so that siblings could all get a share of Mrs. Stoneman's property as she wishes it be distributed. What we did recommend as planners is that the lands end up with a H symbol, stands for holding, which is a symbol that dictates a certain thing has to happen before it proceeds to a development stage. And in this case, it was that a plan of subdivision would have to be entertained before development could take place. And what that step requires is a host of investigations or assessments before the development could ever proceed. And those kinds of assessments or studies that look at things like they look at the environment, they look at traffic, they look at groundwater conditions, they look at how things are serviced and in terms of roads, et cetera. So is it likely that the daughters are ever going to develop the lands? They're not developers. I suspect probably sometime in the future, if ever, they might get passed on to developers who would then be responsible for removing this H only under the condition that the subdivision process is completed in its entirety. And that process, I can assure you, is one that would satisfy the list of concerns that have come forward sort of lately with respect to the other property owners in the village. And those studies will give them the kinds of assurances that I believe will mitigate against any alarms that are out there. So it's not development. It's a way of a family dealing with their estate property, and be happy to answer any questions. Pass it back to you, Your Worship.
Okay, again, Mr. Robinson, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. The only pieces I want to add to Mr. Jackson's provided a good overview of the proposed applications, but I just wanted to make it clear that the lands, a couple of points. The lands are within a settlement area, so they are an area that's earmarked for growth within the official plan. The township is undergoing an official plan review process now, so there is an opportunity to comment on settlement area boundaries and the like through that process, but they are earmarked within the settlement area at this point in time. Secondly, this is a process, again, that's succession planning. The township did ask for a copy of how a proposed subdivision could be developed on the property because it would have been premature for the township to consider the creation of any lots there without an understanding that the lands could be developed comprehensively in the future in accordance with the settlement area policies of the official plan. And then finally, in terms of conditions, the conditions, as Mr. Jackson mentioned, there is a condition that a holding symbol be applied to the lands to require them to be developed through a plan of subdivision, and also that the lands be rezoned. So, and that's specifically to deal with the center parcel. There's a 20-meter access point that would provide a future road or future access point onto the highway from that, or onto the road from that location. So that's really the background related to the application. It is sort of an interim measure to deal with succession planning and sort of family succession planning, but it does still conform with the township's official plan. So happy to address any questions.
Councillor Osborne, your turn.
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess to all of council and any of the public that are watching, Mrs. Stoneman has a succession plan. It's an estate plan, effectively, in order to pass on her properties through to the children. And she has every right to do that. That's what we're considering tonight, is that consent to sever. That's all we're considering. But at the same time, since the applicant has provided a conceptual lot configuration to demonstrate how the lands can be developed, that raised alarms. And I'm even though it's in keeping with policy, only people within 60 meters of this severance application were notified, which represents about maybe 10 or 12 people on the west side of Sandy Plains Road. So as a result, the rest of the community seemed to be caught by surprise. And apparently the conceptual subdivision drawing that came late last week, and it wasn't apparent until the actual agenda came out. And I guess that's when the alarm bells went off from the citizens of Humphrey, thinking that things were racing ahead, which they're not. I think we need to communicate with the ratepayers within Humphrey, quell their fears, ask and answer any questions that come up, and let them know that we will further mitigate, even though we are in a growth plan mode, that we will mitigate any subdivisions that are applied for to make sure they're in keeping with all the items Mr. Jackson has identified, geological, traffic studies, etc. So for that reason, I'm not in favor of actually denying the consent, because we have no grounds to do so. But I would like to propose that we defer this application for maybe a month till first meeting in our first or second meeting of 22, to give time for the fears and questions to be quelled in the community, and then move on at that time. That's my proposal.
The way we do that, Councillor Osborne, is we move out of the public meeting, and then you can make a motion to defer.
I understand that, but I'm just referring to the report that there were three choices: deny, approve, or defer. And I will be making that motion to defer based on those reasons, just to keep the municipality or the community comfortable, and not to deny Mrs. Stoneman her due process. Thank you. That's all I have.
Councillor Moffat?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question to Jamie. In the addendum package, some correspondence came from Christina J. It referenced that this lot in the application has already been severed 5 times before, making this application in violation of that bylaw. I don't know if yourself or Mr. Jackson has any information, or is this a takeaway with respect to that?
Through your worship to the councillor, we can certainly look at the history of law creation associated with this parcel. But what's really relevant here is the fact that it is a lot within a settlement area, that lot creation is anticipated, and that in considering the proposed applications to create these lots, that these lots do meet the consent criteria of the day, which that's what the planning report has evaluated and reviewed. And on that basis, it does, the law creation applications do meet the consent criteria of the day. I'm certainly not opposed to Councillor Osborne's suggestion of a deferral of the application, so we can take the time to press pause and review those comments from the neighbors that have been provided, and make sure we appropriately research those comments that have been provided and consider them, and then come back to council at a subsequent meeting. That's a fair approach.
Thank
Okay,
you,
and I
Mr.
think
Robbins.
one of the keys when we come back is that the process involved in further subdivision would be totally explained to our ratepayers. What if it was going to be subdivided? How would the process proceed? When would they get comment, so that they're reassured that none of this is sliding through without public content? So with your agreement, I would like to close the public meeting and reconvene the regular meeting, and we'll entertain the deferrals at that point. So I have a motion. Public meeting held for the following matter is hereby closed, and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. I have a motion from Councillor Collins.
I so move your motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
All in favor of closing the public meeting? Two.
Yay.
Okay, so I'm going to read the motion that's on the floor, and then we need another motion, but we need a first and a seconder for this one. Motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application number B 2021-0019-F for 2565234 Ontario Inc., subject to the conditions set out in the decision. So I need a motion to make this. Could I have that from Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I'll second that.
Okay, and we have the option here to carry, defeat, or defer. Need a motion to defer. This is for the marina. Okay, Councillor Coles will move to defer. And I need a seconder. Could I have seconder in the form of Councillor Moffat? Okay. All in favor of deferring until the issues of right-of-way and, okay, thank you, that is carried.
That is deferred.
Okay,
Put a date or reason.
okay, the clerk is suggesting that it be deferred until the immediate next meeting, which is the first meeting in January. Everybody comfortable with me putting that date in? Okay. To January.
Mayor,
Councillor Coles?
can we include in the deferral that they must receive something in writing to satisfy their requirements?
That's
know that.
direction to staff, and I think staff has heard that, so,
Okay, thanks.
but we've said till January 10th.
That's fine.
So, yeah, they voted and they put their hands up. And same process on the Stoneman property. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application numbers B 2021-0020-H and B 2021-0024-H for Stoneman, subject to the conditions set out in the decision. I have a motion from Councillor Osborne.
So moved, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I'll move that, second that, Mayor.
Okay, and now I need a mover for the deferral. Can I have that from you, Councillor Osborne?
I'll move to defer, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah.
And shall we,
I'll move.
okay, just a sec, a little bit more writing here. That Councillor Fellner, okay?
Yep.
And
Thank you, Mayor.
shall we put, January 10th for the deferral on this as well?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor of the deferral to January 10th? Councillor Collins, are you okay with that?
I'm in favor of both deferrals.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that is deferred. When I wrote January 10th, 2021. Okay, we are moving to Shore Road Allowances. Council will now consider the following Shore Road Allowance applications. For Shore Road Allowance application number RAS-2021-0013-F for Park at Otter Lake, bylaw number 2021-088, and Shore Road Allowance application number RAS-2021-0015-H for Bouquet and Willis on Portage Lake, bylaw number 2021-082. Have there been any written objections related to these applications?
No written objections have been received.
And I believe Lauren, can you speak to these, please?
I certainly can. Thank you, Your Worship. So yeah, the two public meetings tonight, one for the closure and sale abutting 116 Goddard Crescent on Otter Lake, and the other one for 38 Hayhoe Road on Portage Lake. And there also is an associated deeming bylaw, which is required in order to merge the shore road allowance with the subject lands. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does council have any questions of Ms. Irvin? Oh. Okay, then I'm going to move to the first one. I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-088, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original shore road allowance, application number RAS-2021-0013-F for Park, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I so move your motion, Mayor.
Thank you, and seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
All in favor of the first shore road allowance? Thank you, and okay with you, Councillor Collins?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have the second one, which is motion that bylaw number 2021-089, being a bylaw to deem lot 25 of Plan 264 pursuant to Section 50(4) of the Planning Act not to be on a plan of subdivision, property roll number 4903-030-006-02528, file number D 2021-0004-F for Park, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. I have a motion from Councillor Moffat.
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? You okay, Councillor Collins?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Have another shore road allowance, a motion, bylaw number 2021-082, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original shore road allowance, application number RAS 2021-0015-H for Bouquet and Willis, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion by Councillor Osborne?
So moved, Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I'll second that, Mayor.
All in favor of the shore routing allowance? Two, that's carried. And, I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-083, being a bylaw to deem Lot 5 of Plan M 205 pursuant to Section 50(4) of the Planning Act, not to be on a plan of subdivision, property roll number 4903-010-006-04800, file number D 2021-0005-H for Brett Willis is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I so move your motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
All in favor? Okay with that, Councillor Collins?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I have another motion that bylaw number 2021-084, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original shore road allowance, application number RAF 2021-0016-F for Evans, I deem to have been read a first, second, third time and passed by council. A motion from Councillor Moffat.
I so move that motion, Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Cole.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Two. Councillor Collins, again.
Yes,
You're okay.
absolutely.
And I have the last motion that bylaw number 2021-085, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original shore road allowance, application number RAS-2021-0007-H for Adams, is hereby deemed read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. I have a motion from Councillor Osborne.
So moved, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
Second that, Mayor.
All in favor? Two. Okay. Yeah, okay. Are they in yet? No. Okay, so we're moving to delegations. Let's skip to David Brunton and Cheryl Ward. Welcome on behalf of the Rotary Club of Parry Sound. I'm not sure which one of you is going to speak, or both of you, but you have the floor, and your presentation is to be limited to 10 minutes. If you're not speaking, I'd appreciate if you would mute your microphone.
Good evening, Your Worship, councillors, staff members. My name's Philip Youngs, President of the Rotary Club of Parry Sound. With me tonight is our Vice President and Chair of our three-pitch core committee, Rotarian Dave Brunton. We represent our 38 local members and our friends of Rotary. We thank you for your past support and for allowing us to present to you the sponsorship opportunities available in support of our second annual three-pitch fundraising tournament in support of cancer care. I want to pass this over to Dave because I know time is critical. So Dave Brunton, can you take over?
Thank you very much, President Phil. And can everyone hear me?
Yep, thank you.
And can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Oh, super. That's great. Well, thank you very much for confirming that. Yeah, it's been a while. Seems like forever that 2019 saw us host our first annual three-pitch, which was formerly the RACH, which ran for 15 years prior to that. We were fortunate enough to have 26 teams sign up, whereas the RACH would normally have 32 teams. As you see here on the screen, we're looking forward and hopefully, and starting to plan now, be able to host our second annual Rotary three-pitch. Goal is to raise $70,000, And that's $70,000 will be in support of our local West Perry Sound Health Center, and more specifically, the cancer care department at the West Perry Sound Health Center. And also the Rotary Club and our many projects and beneficiaries that we are associated with. Where are we? Just a little bit of a recap. The first year we were it started off great in the evening. If those of you were out for a fish dinner, pickerel fish dinner on the Friday evening, started wonderful. The weather closed in on us. And this is kind of the result, as you see. The chap on the left is Dr. Jonathan Irish. Believe it or not, he's a brain surgeon, chief of surgical oncology at Princess Margaret Hospital. And in spite of creativity, we really unfortunately had to fine them for the use of illegal equipment on the field. But at any rate, ball players were very creative. And as you can see, there was lots of things to do. A lot of smiling faces everywhere. The rain was nonstop. We canceled Friday evening performance with a disc jockey, and everybody went home early. First time in 15 years that I was home by 10:30 on the Friday evening of the event. But as you can see, it didn't get to dampen our spirits, and a lot of smiling faces all around. And thanks to the generosity and support of all the sponsors, the ball players, the community at large, collectively, we were successful in raising $55,000 in spite of Mother Nature. And it went to support local programs such as the Salvation Army's new community services vehicle. It helps support our district museum with the miniature railroad display that they had, and we were able to apply for matching grants as well. So as the funds come in from the three pitch, they can be enhanced even further with matching grants from our district of Rotary. In this case, they matched it with a $3,000 grant to bring it to $6,000 donation in total. A lot of smiling faces here as we were able to support 100 families with a complete turkey dinner with all the trimmings. And really proud bunch of people in the photo here. Presenting Lynn Atkinson of the foundation with a check for $20,000, which is part of the proceeds from our first annual three pitch. And that went to help purchase a cover slipper, which is a state-of-the-art machine that compares biopsies for many, many years. Or preserves biopsies for many, many years, which enables physicians to be able to compare a biopsy taken, say, today versus 10 or 15 years down the road, helping them diagnose the type of cancer, or if it is cancer, in the cells. So it turned out to be a very, very worthy purchase for the cancer care. And I might add as well, too, that the funds that the arrangement that we have with the foundation and the hospitals, that the monies from the proceeds here goes directly to that purchase. Doesn't have to pass go and go through different hoops and steps, but it goes directly to that item that was purchased. Like so many other activities, through 2020, it was being postponed for 2 years due to COVID-19. And most of the world shut down, as we all know, but not our local Rotary Club. In fact, we were busier than ever creating and implementing the COVID-19 grocery shopping program, partnering with, the local Sobeys and many volunteers in the area to ensure those who couldn't leave their homes during the COVID-19 pandemic could still get their grocery shopping done without risking their health. And as a result, 6,000 at-risk individuals in the area have been served by Rotarians and the network of 30 volunteers since March of 2020. And totally, we have completed 7,482 individual grocery or meal services over the pandemic, as well as conducted a major grocery delivery to Henvey Inlet when they were shut down with a COVID outbreak. And that was partners with Ham and Bus Lines, who bus all the groceries, busloads of groceries up, literally busloads of groceries up to Henvey Inlet. So tremendous support from the community. In 2019, as part of your silver sponsorship, Seguin Township logo was proudly on display at our event. 9 teams from the area have already signed up and are keen on playing some more 3-pitch and supporting the event, which has really become a community event for many in the area to look forward to each and every year. This year, I just had word from the hospital and more specifically the cancer care division that they are in need of a special, it's a special refrigerator, as they call it, of some sort, which stores the chemotherapy products in. And the chemo product stays in this fridge, then is transferred to the ambulatory care unit when a patient arrives to receive treatment. Over this past year, the equipment is needed to be repaired a number of times and is in dire need of repair. So this has been determined as, upon their request, as a target fundraising item for them for 2022. So that's what our hope is to do. And with support such as folks here at Seguin Township. And here we're pleased to present you with our sponsorship opportunities, which hopes that you will again partner with us and select the partnership which you prefer in supporting our local West Prairie Sound Health Center and the individual and group benefactors of Rotary Prairie Sound. And if you have any questions at all, we'd be more than happy to answer them for you between the 3 of us.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and I do want to compliment Rotary on everything you did. You certainly were one of the first organizations to pivot at the beginning of COVID and meet a need in the community, and for that I thank you and applaud all the volunteers that did it. So the process for sponsorship opportunities, this will be considered. I just want to check with Michelle that the Rotary is on the list of people that submitted a request for help by this presentation makes their request for the December deadline. There.
I don't have the file here of all of the applications that we received, but yes, we did receive this in time for the December 1st. So we can consider this their application.
Okay, so this comes back to council with staff recommendation, and we will give it serious consideration when our budget deliberations are done, and we'll get back to you as soon as council makes that decision. But thank you for providing the sponsorship opportunities chart, and it'll be considered seriously by council. So, and thank you for all the work you do in the community and for coming today.
And thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you so much.
David, if you can take your screen down, that would help. That's great. Okay, thank you very much.
Guys.
Okay. I have a motion that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive staff reports as presented on the agenda for December 6th, 2021. Council. Could I have a motion by Councillor Osborne? Report.
So moved, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I'll second that, Mayor.
All in favor? Thank you. Councillor Collins. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, the first motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin hereby directs staff to submit a Minister Zoning Order, or MZO, request to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing on behalf of the Township of Seguin, and that the request substantially take the form of the draft MZO attached to this staff report, AD 2021-018, as attachment 2. Could I have a motion by Councillor Collins?
I so move your motion, Mayor.
Thank you, and seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
I'm going to ask Jason to address it, and then Mr. Robinson before we vote. So, Jason, over to you.
Thank you, Worship, members of Council. Many months of work. We are here discussing the MZO, and it's time to make submissions in housing. I just want to remind Council briefly that a number of the initiatives outlined in our strategic plan speak directly to housing. Livability, 2.6 differentiation, and specifically 2.7, which addresses housing and specifically says to explore opportunities to increase the supply of housing, range of housing choices in staff, along with our partners at MHBC, have taken that direction, your direction, Council, and prepared quite a fulsome report as you package. And to walk us through the details, I will pass over to Robinson and let him walk the specifics of this. And
Jamie, you have the floor.
Thank you, Worship, and members of Council. I apologize. I don't know why my name's in capital letters, but I can't change it. That wasn't done by design. Definitely not more important than anybody else here, that's for sure. But thanks for having me this evening. And the intent of this this item on the agenda is to provide you with an overview of the MZO submission that's been prepared and seek direction from Council to make a submission. The submission hasn't been finalized yet. There's still some tweaks that need to be made in fine tuning, but really to provide Council with some of the details that of the proposal tonight. So with that, a copy of the information is in your agenda package, and I'll really just hit on some of the key highlighted points. And if there's any, and I'd also like to address some of the comments that have been provided, particularly had an opportunity to listen into the council meeting last week in Parry Sound, and there was a number of comments made by a number of members of council, and there's a submission made by the town, and just offer some response to some of those items in terms of big picture comments. So with that, Your Worship and members of council, the proposal, as you're aware, affects an area that's about 300 hectares in size. It's at the northwestern portion of the township that abuts, more or less abuts Parry Sound. There are 2 rail lines that run through the area. There's a few different lakes, and there are some environmental features in the area. So in terms of constructing the MZO, what this document really does is it's a stepping stone, if you will. It's to establish a land use concept and a principle of development that this is an area where that could be the future location for additional housing and some additional mixed uses. So it really sets the stage for those permitted uses. But it also, the way the document's been structured, recognizes that there's a subsequent planning process that needs to take place. And that would be the future submission of plans of subdivision application. It would also entail the future submission of site plan applications, whether it's for multi-unit residential development or for commercial development. and in some instances, submissions of zoning bylaw amendment applications. You'll notice that the proposed MZO does not include specific performance standards, such as minimum lot sizes, minimum lot frontages, setbacks, those sorts of things. Those are more detailed aspects that would be determined at the items I've previously identified through subdivision processes, through site plan processes, and really implemented through more detailed zoning for these areas. Again, what this does is establish the principle of use across this area. So what that does, Your Worship, is it really speaks towards some of the comments that this is being done without any public consultation and that there's no opportunity for public consultation. I'd like to really hit that nail on the head right now, is that the MZO process is a process that's prescribed by the Planning Act and prescribed by Section 47 of the Planning Act. Does it provide the minister with some unique powers? Absolutely, it does provide the minister with some unique powers. It does provide that the minister has the opportunity to post these proposals on the environmental registry for comments, often referred to as the ERO. They don't have to, but they can provide these documents for comments. Anyone at any point in time can provide comments to the ministry or can provide comments to the municipality. What this process doesn't allow, that the typical planning process allows under, say, Section 34, which deals with zoning amendments, is that there's no prescribed public meeting in front of council. That's the key difference from a public perspective. But there's certainly an opportunity for individuals to provide comments to the ministry or to provide comments to council. So that's key, I believe. Secondly, as I identified, the horses aren't leaving the barn, so to speak, on this application, that there's a subsequent requirement for additional Planning Act applications to facilitate development in this area. Plans of subdivision, site plans for multi-residential and commercial uses, and also zoning bylaw amendment applications to deal with performance standards could also be required. So those are some of the one of the key points I wanted to make with respect to public consultation. With respect to the consideration of constraints, the municipality has engaged Hutchison Environmental, who does work for the municipality on a number of the lake monitoring exercises and the water quality exercises that the municipality undertakes. And Hutchison Environmental has undertaken a review of these lands and identified, and again, it's a cursory review, it's a preliminary review. They've identified possible areas of high constraint. What we're proposing through this MZO is to zone those areas as environmental protection, those areas of high constraint. So what this exercise does is it increases the amount of lands with environmental protection zoning in the area that the MZO is proposed. So there's actually increased environmental protections that are provided through this MZO that aren't currently in place in those areas. What this process also would require, again, is through the consideration of those future subdivisions, site plans, and possible zoning processes, would be a review of additional review of environmental features at that time. So there's certainly an opportunity to consider environmental features further. So through the consideration of those subsequent Planning Act applications, there will be a requirement for to demonstrate meeting the requirements of the provincial policy statement, meeting the requirements of the township official plan, and meeting the requirements of environmental legislation, such as species at risk legislation and the Environmental Protection Act. So the comment that this area may be proceeding through the development process without consideration of the environment is not accurate. The environment's fully being considered as part of the fulsome development process that would have to unfold for this area. And through this specific process, additional lands are proposed to be zoned environmental protection. Dealing with timing and phasing of development. There have been some comments provided about concerns about the potential costs and implementation costs to abutting municipalities associated with the development and phasing of these lands. This is ultimately, the build out of this area will ultimately be a market-driven process. It will be one that's driven by a demand situation. Right now, there's been an identification that there isn't a sufficient supply of affordable housing or supply of housing available, and that's partly contributing to the housing concerns or lack of housing in the area. And part of my understanding is part of this council's desire to make additional lands to support housing is to increase that available supply and options to try to make housing more affordable within the area. But ultimately, it will be a market-driven process in order to develop these lands. As part of this, yes, there is a substantial geographic area of land that's being proposed as part of this minister's zoning order, but I expect the build out of these lands to be orderly and to be gradual. And with that, I would expect that any potential burden on servicing or any potential burden on infrastructure that may be considered would be appropriately mitigated and appropriately funded through Seguin Township or by Seguin Township, and also by the development of these lands and the developers that develop these lands. We aren't going to see, let's say, 1,000 homes constructed in 1 year that's going to place a substantial burden. We'll see a modest amount of development occur gradually and incrementally through this area. And there would have to be a requirement, and I think there's a full expectation from this council that council would assist with the funding of development under the principle that development pays for development, and that there would not be a burden on surrounding municipalities as a result of the build out of these areas. To consider that there's going to be a mass influx as a part of this application and a significant burden to surrounding municipalities, I don't think is accurate or realistic based on anticipated build out within this area, and certainly wouldn't be reflective of historic rates of growth within the area. In terms of servicing considerations, Tatham Engineering has been retained to examine the feasibility of servicing these lands from a sewer and water perspective and transportation perspective. Their preliminary analysis has identified that there is an ability to service these lands through infrastructure improvements and shared servicing through the town of Parry Sound. That would obviously have to be agreed to by the town. If the town's not a willing partner in this consideration, then there would be an opportunity to service these lands with a Seguin based solution. So there's two different scenarios that have been considered. Again, the preferred option would be using an extension to the Parry Sound servicing, fully on the basis that this development would be funded by the Township of Seguin and through the development of these lands, that it would not place an undue stress on the town of Parry Sound. In terms of financial considerations, again, I think that just speaks towards the servicing and the fact that the municipality is interested in or a willing partner in coming to the table, recognizing that they're not anticipating placing a burden on other municipalities. There was a comment that I just want to raise made at the public meet or at the session in the Parry Sound Council meeting, which spoke to the requirement that MZOs have to be consistent with the provincial policy statement policies, and that's contained in this memorandum, and that's not an accurate statement. The actual legislation precludes MZOs from having regard to the provincial policy statement. And section 3 specifically of that document. However, what I will say is that any future applications, so the plans of subdivision, the site plans, or the future zoning amendments to implement development of these areas would be subject to the provincial policy statement. So all the requirements for orderly development, environmental protection, all those sorts of things are relevant when considering future applications for these lands. What this application for MZO really does is open the door to the future development of these areas. So with that, in terms of the specific details of the MZO, a copy of that document's in your package. I'm not going to go through it in a significant amount of detail, but what it does is, and I've introduced it at the beginning, is this MZO is really high level again. It identifies a number of permitted uses for these lands. It identifies protection for the areas that have been identified as significant environmental constraints, but then it identifies that there'll also need to be future amendments to, or sorry, future plans of subdivision, future site plan agreements, and also possible future zoning to prescribe specific performance standards such as densities and lot frontages, lot areas, building heights. Those sorts of things would get done through future zoning applications to be considered by this council or future councils, and subject to the official plan, subject to the provincial policy statement and all requirements of the day. So this doesn't sort of open the door completely, it opens it part of the way and would facilitate that those future considerations. And again, with the consideration of those future applications, there would be the requirement for potentially the full suite of planning studies, be it stormwater management considerations, traffic considerations, hydrogeological considerations, archaeological. Those are just some of the examples of studies that could be required through future development processes. So with that, Your Worship, what this application, again, to summarize, does is it addresses that need for future affordable and attainable housing, and it provides the opportunity and opens the door to additional uses. It is an MZO that we believe is consistent with the relevant sections of the provincial policy statement. We believe it's consistent with the growth, or has regard to the growth plan for Northern Ontario, and that it conforms with the township's official plan. Again, it does add that additional environmental protection zoning to a number of lands, or a significant area of lands that doesn't currently exist in those areas. So it does have a heightened level of recognizing those key environmental features. So with that, Your Worship, if there's any questions of members of council, I'd be happy to do my best to try to answer those for you today.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. I also want to point out one thing that came up at Perry Sound Council. They said we surprised them with this request, and in their own council package, they included my letter that you directed me to write, dated December 20th, 2020, that indicated that we were talking about this and with meeting with developers. So they've had a heads up for 12 months that we would be coming with this. So Councillor Osborne had his hand up first.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Jamie. Jamie, in the report, page 104 on our iPads, it's the attachments, and I'm having difficulty finding attachments 2 and 3. 2 being the draft minister's zoning order, and 3 being letters from neighboring municipalities. Were they not included in our, maybe we'd ask the clerk if they were included in our agenda.
I can address that through Your Worship. At page 113 of the package, you can see the draft minister's zoning order. There's a couple highlights at the top of the page, but that's the document. There is a map that will go along with that, which isn't included.
So that is, sorry to interrupt, but that is the draft application, the Ontario regulation made under the Planning Act?
That would, sir, that would be what we would be requesting the ministry to approve. So there's a letter that will go in and some supporting documentation and a planning report that accompanies it. with the draft engineering or with the preliminary engineering report, with the preliminary environmental report. But this is ultimately the ask. This is what I would equate to the zoning bylaw amendment that would be provided on a council meeting if it was before this council.
Understood. And as far as attachment 3, have there been any letters in return from First Nations or other abutting municipalities?
So there have been letters provided by a number of municipalities. 2 in particular. Let me just make sure. I've got a note here about this, and I want to make sure I get it right. So just bear with me 1 second here.
Sure.
It wasn't available. They weren't actually all compiled when the staff report was prepared and finalized for the agenda. So thanks for picking up on that missing piece. But so there have been comments provided by Georgian Bay Township, McDougall, Town of Parry Sound, Archipelago, Whitestone, West Parry Sound Health Center, Parry Sound Municipal Airport, and we expect there'll be some others come in the coming days. There's been a few municipalities. I know that Archipelago, Parry Sound have identified that they'd prefer this sort of a thing to proceed through more regional review and more regional review consideration. McDougall has requested additional time and materials to review, and then we have received support from the other municipalities. So,
thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Cole.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jamie and Jason, for all your work on this. It's incredible in a short amount of time. Understanding what occurred at the Parry Sound Council last week, which was fine. I can tell you that the board's members and chairs from the West Parry Sound Health Center, which I think you said we've received a letter from, are very supportive. In a meeting with them last week, they were thrilled with what we were doing, and I think that goes without saying. One of the questions that's come to me from constituents is about Seguin's Environment First policy, and I guess what I would just like to remind folks that may be watching is that, in fact, the north part of this backs Canadian Tire and Rona, and it's industrial. This is not your typical wilderness or whatever. It's a very industrial area, and I think we have to keep that in mind. And the other part, as you go along the top border, is the hospital grounds and all the parking lots. So this is really prime for housing development, as opposed to other kinds of development that could occur. And as you get down into the lake area, it won't be anything different than the rest of Seguin, in my mind. That's how I see it. We will ensure that the environment is protected. But there is a need, and housing, there is a tremendous housing shortage. So best that Seguin be on top of this, and I'm proud of us for having got this far. Thank you.
Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also share Councillor Coles' comments. People have called me, and I guess the way I've described it in my simple non-planning world, Jamie may laugh, is we have this in our official plan. We have a set of standards. All we're really doing is accelerating the process by, in my mind, about 4 years. We are going through an official plan review. It would be part of that. It's just that we are trying to move the shovel into the ground from 2025 until, let's say, 2022. And we're doing what we feel is what the region needs, and in order to get things done. So that's how I've described it, Jamie. I don't know if I'm accurate enough, but that's the way I've when I've received calls, that it's basically an acceleration of what's already in our official plan, and we're just maybe eliminating one step. But we certainly have, as you mentioned, significant amount of public consultation that would happen, at the next phases. Thank you.
Very much, and I too am incredibly proud of this council and the staff for moving it forward. And when Jason and I did meet with the Minister Clark, he opened the discussion by saying we were here to fix a crisis in the. housing crisis. This is not housing for Seguin, it's housing for the region.
Hello, Mayor. Last but not least.
Okay, so yes, Councillor Collins.
Thank you. I wish I was on Zoom, but unfortunately I'm not. And we're still out of power and internet. But anyways, thank you. And I'll try to make this short and sweet, not try to sugarcoat what's before us today. But this is about, to me, young families, seniors, and hardworking families. This MZO is the biggest story that has come to our area in recent years. And this council has a vision and the opportunity to make it happen. Just think, for 15 years, negotiating with Parry Sound for residential development simply went nowhere. As corporate-minded professionals, what are we going to do? We going to sit around the table and worry about placing undue stress on them? Not on my watch. It's unfortunate they are missing the opportunities this development would create and benefit us all. What is a natural, positive development of vacant lands in our township is the only way the area can grow and prosper, creating a recipe for jobs and enhancing new business growth. I think, if I'm not mistaken, is economic expansion. The prudent decision for this council is to unanimously support our MZO resolution. This is necessary and positive for the growth in our area. And I could keep going on the subject matter, but I've said what I wanted to say. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask the CAO to summarize before we vote.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council, and a huge thanks to Jamie and Lee from MH with this. And I want to acknowledge and thank all of the municipalities and the community partners that have provided us with comment thus far. It's been a conversation, and we've learned a lot about what people, our communities are looking to see and understand, and we're happy to continue that partnership. We share all the information for council's benefit, for the public's benefit. We do have a page up on our Let's Connect Seguin website with information pertaining to the MZO. And as we get all of the final documents put together, we will put them up on the website for everyone to. Quick insight, and then I'll stop. But as everyone's well aware, I relocated here to the north just over a year ago. I came from an area where we put in place growth management plans, where we had to control and how and when development would happen. And I've come here, and what I've learned is that we don't have to manage growth, we have to attract growth. And one of the key components to attracting growth is to be development ready. This MZO prepares lands to be ready and able for future development, again, supporting all of the principles of our official plan, our strategic plan, our zoning bylaws. One of the keys that really this council and this community stand behind is that environment first philosophy. Everybody heard Mr. Robinson just moments ago speak to enhancing the environmental protection in the area. And it's not an insignificant component. I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but as I recall, it's a very significant portion of the land that we will actually protect by putting in place stronger policies that protect the economic growth, the social benefits, in our opinion, are all the right reasons to proceed. Forward to hearing your vote, and we'll work towards getting this. Should council give us?
Thank you. And again, congratulations to everybody who's worked on it. So we have a motion before us, moved by Ted Collins and seconded by Gail Finson, that the ministerial zoning order be submitted to the Minister of Municipal Affairs as it's finalized with the last few tweaks. So may I call a vote now to give staff that direction? All in favor? And Councillor Collins?
Yes, Mayor, finally, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, and that is unanimous endorsement to proceed.
Oh,
Thank you very,
great
very
news.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks to you, Jamie, and your entire team for all you've done, and you summarized it well. This is a step for the whole region. Okay, I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-096, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a municipal voting contract agreement for e-voting services between the Corporation of the Township of Seguin and IntelliVote Systems, Inc., 2022 municipal election is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. I have a motion from Councillor Moffat.
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I'll second that motion.
Is there any discussion or questions? This is coming to us from the clerk. Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one question for Craig. In the past election, we had provided a computer at our municipal office, and I think we also made available a computer at our libraries in order to accommodate people that may not have the technology at their home. Was that something that was going to be considered? I know it's sort of outside of this, but I'm wondering if that is anticipated again this time.
Madam Mayor. Depending on COVID, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I understand that.
Everything depends on COVID.
Put that caveat in there. We
Yes.
generally have a terminal available at the municipal office. We don't provide terminals at the library branches, but people are free to go in and use the computers already at the branch. And previous elections, library staff have been there to assist.
Sorry, I wasn't. Sorry, my bad, Craig. I wasn't implying that we would put a computer at the library. It just meant that there would be one, or there are computers at the library that would be available for, and staff have generally been accommodating. So, okay, thank you.
That's correct.
Thank you. I think it's our goal to make it as accessible as possible, but COVID is still dictating how we go about doing that. So this is really just to get the contract going with the same company we've used. So all in favor of moving on this motion? Thank you. Councillor Collins, you okay with this one?
Yes, absolutely, Mayor. Yes.
Thank you. And I have motion that as per the recommendation of staff report number TR 2021-016, 2022 draft capital budget, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby direct staff to include the 2022 draft capital budget in the in-principle budget approval to be brought forward to Council in January 2020. I have a motion from Councillor Osborne.
So moved, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I'll second that, Mayor.
And Michelle is on to answer any questions. If there are questions, it's a very comprehensive budget and it's coming forward earlier than we're used to, but I think it's a great budget. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Mayor. And Michelle, as usual, you do a great job in the budget, but I can't find in here any number for seasonal roads in 2022. Where did it go?
The seasonal roads are on the amended infrastructure strategy as part of the roads budget. And I want to speak to that just a little bit right now, because as it stands, we have $100,000 for seasonal roads every year. Now, we did just find out about a week and a half ago about some new funding coming in called the Northern Ontario Resource Development Support Fund, which is $232,000 a year for the next 5 years. The guidelines for that are not expected until tomorrow. What I'm expecting is that we'll probably be able to take those funds use them on the rest of the capital budget, the roads capital budget mainly. And that then frees up some capital money that we can put into the seasonal roads.
Okay, because just if I can ask a further question, originally the seasonal roads budget was 100, then last year it went to 250.
Yes.
And I had requested an additional 150 going forward for obvious reasons that we will discuss later in our council meeting. So that's why I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, and really, I mean, as you can see, the capital budget is putting huge pressure on the reserves.
Yes.
In 4 years, the reserves go down to 20%, which I'm not comfortable with and is outside of the targets that we have. So we've made a few decisions, we've juggled a few things, and I'm really hoping that this 232,000 a year will free up some money so that we can add more to the seasonal roads.
Okay, I appreciate that, the consideration and just and the way you answer the question. I think that there are some other things at play which I'm not at liberty to discuss right now, but we can talk about later, which may help.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. Michelle, through you, Mayor, to Michelle. Review of various bylaws, short-term cottage rental, site alteration, zoning, administrative penalties, 200,000. Could you dive into that huge amount of money for me and explain why the 200,000? Is this, are we going out for consultation on some of these issues, or are we doing it in-house?
No, this would be going out for third-party consultation. So for example, there's 50,000 for the short-term cottage rental bylaw and program. There's 50,000 for the site alteration bylaws and any administrative penalties. There's 100,000 for a review of the zoning bylaw.
A site alteration was again for.
They're the three bylaws, the blasting, fill, and tree cutting.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. Michelle, I'm just wanted to go back to your point about reserves. What is your projections with respect to growth and such factored into the reserve or future revenue sources?
Growth in terms of
Assessment, is that factored into?
As it stands right now, there's not going to be a reassessment done for the next 2 years.
Correct.
So we're looking at on actual not physical, but actual growth in 2022. I'm looking at municipal taxes of about $120,000 a year.
Okay.
That's actual growth, new growth.
Right.
In terms of the reserves, it's really hard to say right now because we don't know what's going to happen in 2 years when they reassess us. I can tell you that when I was in a webinar with MPAC some time ago, the average value in Ontario had gone up something like 80%. Seguin's average value was up 124%. So while that's great in terms of growth, it also attracts more expenses.
Agreed, but the way I'm interpreting your comment though, Michelle, is that it's a status quo. However, we can anticipate that growth will happen. Therefore, there will be opportunities to increase or bring back our reserves into the range you're looking at. But currently, that's not factored into the budget. We've just talked about an MZO. We've got potential for that. We've also talked about a wellness center with a bunch of projections of operating income and expenses that are pushed out. And we all sort of said, yes, wait till we get there. So there is potential in all of this to grow and grow numbers. So I don't think that we should be, the sky is falling. And I'm not saying you're saying that, but there's many opportunities here to build out and develop as we walk the next 2 to 3 years.
And many of those things that you're talking about are 3 years and beyond.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that 3-4 year period where we're really looking at the pressure on the reserves, and hopefully, yes, that will help us. So.
But you just mentioned we're getting $233,000 from the government, which just fell out of the sky.
Yeah.
There is, those things happen as well. And we've gotten a significant amount of money over the last year and a bit that has, that we never anticipated. So there's a bunch of push and pulls that are happening. We're also forecasting another surplus for 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Based. So again, there's opportunity. We don't have as much stressors as others may have.
Possibly.
I understand, Michelle. So thank you.
And I compliment Michelle. She's being careful and not putting numbers in that we can't bank on yet. Councillor Osborne, I see your hand is up, but are there any other you've commented once on the budget, so does anybody else have anything to add to this discussion before I recognize Councillor Osborne one more time?
Yes, I do, Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Collins, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Ted.
Star Lake Road. I'm looking at the amended infrastructure strategy 22 to 26 now. You've got it. You have nothing slated for 2022. I'm having a hard time with that.
Actually, I'm just going to interrupt you there because the money for 2022 is actually being carried forward from 2021.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay,
so the work will start.
Okay. So if that's the case, then in the 2020 budget, there was 30 grand for drainage and base improvements that was never done. Then in 2021, there was 570,000 allocated, which would bring to a total of 600,000. And then in 2022, we were going to allocate another 450,000 for the Star Lake Roads project, which is a total of 1,050,000. So I'm wondering I'm confused. Where's the money?
So the original 30,000 was for engineering, and then the next year,
base improvements.
That was for the initial engineering, and then there was the next 475 or 575. It was in 2021, and this is the balance of what has not been spent to date on Star Lake Road. So what will happen is in 2022, there'll be 585,000 on Star Lake Road, and then 510 in each of the next 3 years after that.
Okay, so then it's been set then after the engineering has been done, I'm assuming, right? Because it'll be starting.
Preliminary engineering, yes.
Yeah. Then this development of Star Lake Road is going to take 3 years?
4 years.
4 years?
4 years.
It's going to take 4 years because we have to do full engineering on the road as per council recommendation. So.
No, I understand that, Pete, but wasn't that started a year ago? We go back to 2020 now. Nothing's been done since 2000, for 2 years, 2021, for 2 years now. Well, actually, for the last 25 years, if we really want to count, but.
Okay, I'm going to ask our Chief Administrative Officer to speak to this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. As you'll recall, earlier in the year, there was a report that outlined some options on how to proceed with the Star Lake Road reconstruction. We've tied that work into the financing strategy, and what you see before you is, yes, a 4-year plan. And I acknowledge, and I think we all acknowledge, Councillor Collins, that there's some here, and we're working towards building quality product that will last for many years to come. We've done some preliminary engineering. We're now in the stage where we're doing the detailed engineering work that will see the phased approach, the construction plans, and the ultimate build out of this road. So I think, we're going to follow the direction of council. You wanted a high quality built road. We're doing that, and in order to balance that with the books, we are phasing it over 4 different phases, as outlined in the capital budget.
All right, Jason, thank you. It's just that this has been a long time waiting, and it's one of the most traveled roads in my ward. And I was just surprised when I heard it was going to be four years to finish the project. So yeah, I'm a little bit shell shocked right now.
It's no small scope of work, Councillor Collins. We want to do this right, and in order to do it right, we want to make sure that the proper engineering is in place, the proper construction practices are in place, so that those that use that road get that quality product. And like I said, balancing that with the books is a big work feat, and I thank our staff for doing that. And we want to make sure that those using that road get that quality product.
Councillor Collins.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. Michelle, I'd be remiss. The work that Public Works does for park to park, that's not in the capital budget, that's in donations, is it? Or how does that work?
That's correct. The 20,000 a year that we took and set aside is kept in a separate account.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I don't have, I mean, I understand the Starlight thing. I mean, it's going to cost twice as much money to do it right as put a Band-Aid on it. It's just going to take longer to do it. So I don't have any problem with anything else. Thanks.
Okay, final comment from Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 more questions, Michelle, please. Well, you mentioned that the potential increase in assessment in our area is huge. Would that not impact our revenue once the impact reassessment occurs? To the good?
It would, but it's going to be going up all over Ontario. Everybody's assessment's going up.
Right.
So really, that's not going to generate any new revenue.
Does it not, when applied to our mill rate, does it not bring in more revenue to Seguin for our ratepayers?
No, because we adjust the tax rate when the assessment just goes up as opposed to for real growth. We adjust the tax rate for that.
Okay. Lastly, the residue left from, or if there is a residue left from COVID, can it account in your world, can any of that money be put into your depleted reserve fund?
What we're planning on doing, and I'm actually in the process right now, is going through all of our accounts and making sure that we can maximize the use of that COVID money. It will generate a surplus. We did talk about this at the last council meeting, and that surplus we will mainly be setting aside for the pool and the wellness center.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jason has the final comment here, and then we'll take a vote.
So thank you, Worship, members of council. I first off just want to thank and acknowledge all the staff. This has been an accelerated timeline to get this project put together, to get this capital budget before you, along with all the other moving pieces. Our day-to-day business, no small feat. So I thank all the staff, and of course, all quarterbacking all of this to bring what's before you today in front of you. And just as a brief reminder now, at this point, council has seen the 2022 budget. While it has been in pieces, you've seen nearly every piece that there is that makes up the 2022 budget. And so at the next meeting of council, which will be January the 10th, we will bring you a final package that will highlight all of the discussion, out all of those provisional approvals that you've given us, so that we can proceed to final approval from council on the 2022, not the final, a provisional approval in January. Accelerate our programs and get us working right away, early in January. So thank you for your due diligence over the last few months as we brought this to you, and a big shout out to our staff who's put the paper and went to work really hard to bring you the best budget they could. And again, I can't help but acknowledge the fact that inflation is through the roof right now. The challenges and stresses that we're facing are going to be fairly significant. So we will bring you the most responsible budget we can based on the direction we've received from you, but for you, 2% is very difficult and not likely what you're going to see.
Thank you. I think we're all living inflation when we fill up our cars. So we have a motion to accept the draft capital budget, moved by Rod and seconded by Terry. Could I ask all in favor of the draft capital budget? And Councillor Collins?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Michelle, for pulling it all together. We
Thank
will
you.
keep an eye on those reserves. I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-095, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a license agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, Municipality of McDougall, and Franco Amadeo Salituro and Tanya Breiter Salituro for part of the original road allowance between Lot 9, Concession 12, former Foley Township, now the Township of Seguin, Lot 8, Concession 1, former McDougall Township, now the Municipality of McDougall, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins, please?
I so move your motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
And I see Brady is here to explain what we're looking at. Brady, you have the floor.
Yes, Your Worship and members of council. This license agreement application, it was submitted to recognize an existing driveway that traverses over a portion of a concession road allowance, which actually forms the boundary between Seguin and McDougall. The application has already received council approval from McDougall. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council have any questions? Seeing none?
Yep.
All in favor? Sorry, Councillor Osborne, you have a question?
Yes, Mayor. I just wanted to ask Brady, is this a renewal of an existing license agreement or a new license agreement?
No, this is a new license agreement.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All in favor? Thank you. Councillor Collins, you okay with this one?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Brady. I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-104, being a bylaw to authorize the negotiation and execution agreement with Cloud Permit to supply, implement, and provide ongoing support of an e-permitting software for the Corporation of the Township, hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from council?
I think that was me, so I will go. I so move your motion, Mary. Cut out there.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I'll second that.
And Curtis is here to answer any questions. It's a very comprehensive staff report. So I ask council if you have any questions for Curtis. I see none, but I do want to say to Curtis, this has been a long time coming, and it'll be exciting to simplify and digitize the tedious processes we have. So congratulations on getting it going. And I know some of the transition may not be smooth, but I applaud you and your staff for tackling this. So go for it.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're pretty excited to get support for this project, not only to recognize the efficiencies from the customer standpoint, but the efficiencies for our own department, tracking, reporting, you name it, this package has it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All in favor? 2. Collins? Assuming you're
Yes,
okay.
absolutely. Yes.
Great. Okay, so we move on to item 8F. And you have a very comprehensive report about the Tally Ho boat launch. Are there any questions for Director Kopich? Basically, we are continuing to study options, and we did receive a piece of correspondence from the Tri-Lakes, basically supporting the staff recommendation. So, thank you. The report was for information. And I believe, Peter, you are still on the hot seat for the food recycler, or food cycler organic waste reduction proposal, which we had as a delegation at the last meeting. And staff is recommending that we participate in the pilot. Are there any questions for? Okay, I have a question.
No, I have a question,
Okay,
ma'am.
Councillor Collins, go ahead.
Yes, these units that we're thinking of getting, are they going to be the large units or the small units? Because I was told that the small units is only good for a couple. If you're a family of 4 or more, forget it. You need to get the large unit.
Well, the status is if we want to participate, we have to get in before the end of the year, but we can start at a later date. And they don't know when their production will be completed on the larger units. So it's possible that we can wait until the new ones come, but we had a lot of very positive feedback from other municipalities that we contacted directly, and they were all very happy with it, and the ratepayers all had very positive response to it. So
I was just talking, Councillor Moffat has one, and he was telling me that the smaller unit for a family of 4, you would be, it's just too small. This is good for possibly one person or a couple. That's it. So I'd hope that Daryl would speak up here and let us know that about the smaller units.
Well, they also have extra buckets that you can have, so you can have one bucket full and operating while you collect another one. So it actually makes it more efficient.
So 2?
2 buckets.
Extra bucket.
And I think, Councillor Collins, what we heard at the delegation was that they are working on bigger units, but they're not really ready yet. So if we're going to participate in the pilot, we take what they've got, which are the smaller units. My 2 children out west have them, and daughter is a family of 4. Kind of depends how much household food waste you have, but she does have 2 or 3 buckets going. And just put another bucket in to process that's kind of what she's stuck with right now, but she loves it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think this is a great idea, but I'm just wondering, these buckets are the buckets in the kitchen, or are they outside, or?
You actually would put this in your basement.
Plastic bucket that sits inside.
Oh, okay. So if you got 2 or 3 buckets, how big are these buckets?
They're the same size as the unit, basically. Let's let Councillor Moffat speak to it.
Thank you.
The expert there.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, the buckets are about 6 inches deep. They almost look like a size of a bread machine, a decent sized bread machine. I'm not disputing what Councillor Collins said. If you are used to recycling and composting, all it means is that you just need to have a few extra buckets in order to get the materials into the food cycler so it can do its job, and basically you'd be running it more frequently whether that's, during the day or during the night or whatever, but you will end up having, as a larger family, in all likelihood, food waste waiting to get processed. It's not a bad thing. We leave the compost bucket on our counter until such time as it's got to go out. So, it's not abnormal to, do that. It doesn't, it's not like there's animals running around or whatever. So it works, it works fine. Certainly it would be great if there was a food cycler that was, 3 feet tall. You fill it up and, grind it down and away you are. But as we were told, that's not the case at this time. So we are where we're at with this. I'd like to see this. I recognize that this is a much larger part of our waste strategy, but this is at least a step in the direction to get this, to eliminate waste, food waste out of our trans stores. So hopefully that clears up. I would not, it can work. It's just that there's some, process things that you have to deal with. But one item, Peter, that you and I were back and forth this afternoon with, I'm wondering if you could just clarify on that, given that there is some information out in the public on our rebate system, and if you could address that for the balance of everyone in the public, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, the Seguin has a rebate program for regular composting systems that we implemented 2 years ago, and it's we've had a number of people use it. With the food cycler, however, there's so many discounts on it. The township is already paying for some in this proposal. Plus, we're getting a large discount from the supplier. We will not be using the $40 or the $40 rebate on this program, but it will still be available for regular composters. So this isn't a composter, this is a dehydrator. So anyway.
Thank you for that clarification, Peter.
Okay, thank you.
And I think once we get into the pilot, we will be using Let's Connect Seguin to tell about the program, maybe do a media release. There will be a public communications once we're ready to go.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is just a pilot, as you just suggested. We're not purchasing, we're only purchasing 100 units. It's not a huge number.
Correct.
And there's a lot of just couples only in Seguin. I think they'll go quick. I'm taking that it's $200 to the ratepayer. You get a $50 rebate with a coupon or something. Or
that's to make sure.
Survey.
That's to make
Okay.
sure they do the survey.
Okay. My only other question is, Daryl, how much are the extra cups, the extra containers?
$20, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good idea. We got to do this.
Okay, I've got a motion that I didn't read before we started discussing it, so let me read the motion. Move that as per the recommendation of staff report number PW-WD-2021-002, Food Cycler Organic Waste Reduction Proposal, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve the Township of Seguin participating in the Food Cycler Organic Waste Reduction Pilot at a cost to the township of $12,000 plus taxes, funded from the 2021 waste operating budget, and that council does hereby approve the execution of the food cycle science terms accepted and agreed form as attached as Schedule A to this resolution. I have a motion from Councillor Moffat.
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor of proceeding with the pilot? Councillor Collins, I hope you're okay with that.
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve, after discussion, of RHH engineering report dated November 24th, 2021 for improving Ferris Road Hill, and that council does hereby approve financial analysis option discussed of staff report number PW-RD-2021-015 Ferris Road approach options, the financing option of this project. I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So moved, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I'll second that.
Okay. You have 4 options,
6 options.
six options really, in front of you. You can see that tackling this road is an expensive proposition. They're all basically, by the time legal and everything is added to any one of the 6 options, about $1.2 million cost to fix the road, which represents a 10% tax increase, 100% of our ratepayers. So is there any? Yep, Ted, do you have something to add?
Join the meeting.
I just lose Councillor Collins, or Councillor Collins, do you have something to say?
I think he just came back, Mayor. I think he was off and came back.
Give him a second.
His number's on the screen.
Craig has to let him in again. Councillor Collins?
Yes, Mayor, I'm back. Sorry.
Okay, great. Do you have a comment on this?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, which option of the 6 do you prefer? Councillor Coles, you have your hand up.
Thanks. Yeah, I would go with the staff recommendation, which is option 6 in terms of the options. I guess what I'm a little bit frustrated tonight because of the seasonal budget was altered, and well, now we're finding out, but it would have been my recommendation that we do this project, which we would have had close to $500,000 or $400,000 if what we had asked for this year and including last year's carried forward, and we do this project over 2 years, starting it in the fall of 2022, complete it in the spring of 2023, which minimizes any huge borrowing like $1 million and keeps it within the capital budget, which seemed at the time to be a good way of doing it. But now we seem to have lost our capital budget for seasonal roads. So I still think it's a good way to do it. Rather than doing the one hit of $1 million, you do it over, start it in the fall, complete it in the spring, and do it over 2 fiscal years.
Councillor Fellner.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think that I would concur with the staff, but it would only make sense really to use the 6th proposal. I mean, that's the one that makes the most sense for me. My opinion on how to board is, I think that this thing's been around for a long time, and it's basically been put on a shelf, I don't know how many times, primarily because of the cost, I think. It isn't the only example of this type of thing in the township. I mean, we can go and find numerous other situations that are in parallel, that are $1 million fixes for a road that's seasonal, got 60 people on it, 50 people on it. I really think the prudent thing to do here, in my opinion, is treat these as special projects and look for, I think you got to gauge the appetite from the 70 people that are there. And I wouldn't like to see the seasonal roads overall seasonal roads project take a hit because we're gonna spend all the money in 2 years on this thing, because then after 2 years, there's another road that's gonna take the next 2 years and nothing's gonna get done to, to all the roads that can be dealt with in a fairly economic manner. I don't see the benefit in that. And I don't necessarily think that we should burden the reserves. I don't think we can really afford to do that this time. So I think that, we need to lean more towards 3 and look for a way to do this. It should be done. It needs to be done. I have no disagreement with doing it, but it has to be set up in my opinion, as a special status. And I think it's going to need the support of the people that the Hill services. And that's about what I have to say on that.
Just for clarification, Councillor Fellner, are you suggesting that your preference is to go with option 6 in terms of the way the engineering would be done, and to split the cost somehow between allocation from the township and a community improvement process? Is that what you're suggesting? I'm just not clear. Okay, so a hybrid of how we'd finance it. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with Councillor Coles on this. We shouldn't be taking a big hit. I mean, we're going to spend 3 or 4 years on Star Lake Road. We know this Ferris Hill has to be fixed. If anyone's driven it, it's a no-brainer. But if we're taking that long on Star Lake Road over a period of time, be it 2 or 3 years, it less impact on the ratepayer in any given fiscal year. So I would agree with spreading that project out over a period of years, not to the extent that we lose focus on the road and have a degradation over those 3 years. And maybe Peter can talk to that. When you take a project of this nature and do it over 3 years, Peter, is there any degradation that occur over time that would make it more expensive in the long run to do it in stages?
In this particular case, the option 6 doesn't impact or doesn't encroach on the existing roadway.
Right.
So in this particular case, it would allow the construction of the road over any period of time, really, until it finally done. So that's what that particular option was, why it was selected and why that was the best one.
Good. And I am for option 6 as well, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess a few things out of this. There was a gentleman that provided some correspondence whereby he suggested that it wasn't an all or nothing opportunity. So that, with regards to financing, and obviously that is the critical piece in all of this, I think there are many levers or opportunities in terms of financing, whether it's through our current rate, whether it's through some reserves, whether it's through some community, and whether it's through some grant that can be, looked at in order to finance this over a period of time. I don't think it's one or the other, as indicated, and I think there's many opportunities to do this. But the critical thing in all of this is to demonstrate a commitment by the township to actually do this, not lip service to this, but actually do it. So if we are going to do it over a 3-year period as based on option 6, then let's start to put a shovel into the ground. We put the money in the bank and we spend the money to start to progress, as Councillor Osborne has just noted and as Peter has confirmed. We could do X thing in the next year. That then demonstrates a commitment to the residents, and they're waiting for that commitment to make decisions. Most of them would like to retire in Seguin. They cannot, because they cannot get to their place off this municipal owned road and municipal asset, as Councillor Coles reminded me this afternoon, this is a municipal asset. So we need to be able to demonstrate that, and they will make that commitment when they see a commitment on the other side to deal with the hill. So we need to do it, and they will follow up. I can't say in terms of the community improvement, we've talked about it, but until things are on paper and people can see it, they'll have to make some decisions. But I think there are many levers to accommodate that. So we can achieve it, but we've got to do it. This has gone on, 2 years ago in the summer of 2019, the council chamber was packed with regards to this issue the last time we talked about it. So there is certainly a commitment from every one of those people that were there, and there's a commitment from everyone. But we've had people move away. You saw it in the correspondence. We had a nurse had to move away because couldn't get to the job. We had a plow truck operator had to move away because they couldn't get to the job. So people are concerned and they want to get it dealt with. And we have to, if we're going to do this, option 6 is our best option, and we put the money away and we start to do it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I hear.
I got one more thing to say, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor
That's
Collins.
all right. Yeah, no, I listened to Councillor Moffat and yes, I think we should do something with this, what they say is an unsafe hill to climb up, but it boggles my brain because to me, unless these property owners contribute, they have to contribute something because they're the ones that bought the property, supposedly up a hill that's graded supposedly unsafe. Now, why in the beginning would they have done that? That makes no sense to me. Because of the price of this is a capital roads project. This is a capital roads project. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This isn't general maintenance. And, this year and including next year, we've got the pool complex that we have to consider. We've got the MZO, et cetera. And you start putting the shovel in the ground now, I can't see that. I can't see that at this time. I can't see spending taxpayers' money at this time to improve a hill grade that residents have drove on since and that hill's been there since the beginning of time. And there's only a handful of residents that live full time. So this has to be done. I'm gonna go along with what Terry said, a special project that with different types of financing and see how that matures rather than sticking a shovel in the ground today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moffat and Councillor Fellner both have their hands up, but they've already spoken on this issue. So I'm going to suggest that what I'm hearing is an appetite to fix it, an appetite that 6 is the best engineering option, and that probably a hybrid financing model or more details about how it could be financed needs to be examined, i.e. if there's a community improvement process, what chunk would they take? And how would we calculate that based on other, when we invest in another road, is it $10,000 per person that lives down there, or is it $100,000? I don't know. I don't know that answer. And I don't know what financing options might be out there. I think Councillor Moffat makes an important point that the residents want to see some traction from this council to do something. And yeah, the road's been there since the beginning of time. Jason and I talked about it today. It was probably an old logging road. I don't think any engineer likely sat down and said, I'm going to go over this hill that's bigger than 12%. It's probably just evolved from a cow path or something.
Actually, that road was a hydro easement road. That's how it all began. Because if you go to the top of the hill, what do you see? You see hydro lines, high-powered
Anyway.
hydro lines. And it was
I
a
don't know.
hydro easement road.
I don't know how it came to be that way, but I would
Yeah,
like to
neither
refer
do I.
it back to staff to come with a recommendation on how to finance it, over what period of time, and if there's a community improvement element, how would that be calculated? Because right now, we're just putting our finger in the wind and saying, oh, this much would be there and this much. Let's have staff look at how to finance it using option 6 and come back to how would it be done. And because I don't want to go further into reserves. We're at risk right now. Yeah, there's going to be growth, but again, until it's quantified, it's in the back of our minds, not the front of our minds. I also want to point out that fixing this hill is only the beginning, because there's a seasonal road after it, and there's 2 railway right-of-ways. Those don't happen fast or easily. So it's the beginning of something. So I'd like to ask our Chief Administrative Officer if he's prepared to take on this financing challenge and come back.
Worship, and I'm happy to hear the rest of council's. That's the desire of council. We're happy to go do some exploration into what the financing options might look like. I think you brought up an interesting point. Our Chief Financial Officer will have the same comment about what are the impacts on our capital programs if we start that funding. And I also hear, we need to for various other options, whether grant funding or challenges, of course, with grant funding is 9 times out of 10 when there is a grant available, either needs to be sort of shovel ready or council approved or something to that effect. So I think, again, happy to hear the rest of back, but we'll go back and do some options. It sounds like perhaps exploring the blended option is something appetite for, and back and figure it out. And to Councillor Moffat's point, at that point, we would provide council with a recommendation, very well past that resolution, which would be the commitment for, and then off we can go. And I can share just at the very highest of levels, and Mr. Wrong, but any circumstance, years worth of end negotiations, end acquisition, field engineering, before a shovel hits the ground. So, not see a physical do, but something. Yep.
Jason, you're dropping right off.
I can't hear him at all.
No, can't hear him at all.
Can
Did you hear him,
other people
Terry?
hear?
No, I couldn't hear.
No, just dropping right off.
Okay.
I heard him
basically
perfectly.
Basically what Jason had suggested is that go back to staff will take it back, come up with some financing options, but the most important piece is that there's at least a year of land acquisition, final engineering drawings before anybody's moving earth on this. It's a big project, and we need to figure out how it affects our capital. So I see 3 hands up, but I'm going to ask you to be very brief because you've all spoken on this issue already. Councillor Moffat, quickly.
Thank you. I believe we have a resolution on the floor, Mayor.
Do.
I don't know. And if you could just remind us what the resolution is, please,
You want it read again?
if you don't mind, please.
The Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve concept to be defined of RHH Engineering Report dated November 24th, 2021 for improving Ferris Road Hill. And that Council does hereby approve financial analysis option blank of the staff report number PW-RD 2021-015 Ferris Road approach options for the financing option of this project. So what I would suggest is that I'm hearing, want me to,
Really no motion on the floor because it has blanks in it. So the discussion had to take place. And it would have been decided if there would be an actual motion on the floor with stuff in it. What I'm hearing is there's not going to be a motion because council's not prepared to fill in those.
That's not what I'm hearing, Mayor.
just hang on a second, please, until you're recognized as having the floor, Councillor Moffat.
Yes,
We're
the
listening
floor.
to the clerk.
Yes,
The
the
clerk
floor.
is speaking. The clerk is trying to advise council of how to proceed. So one option that is there is to approve part of it, that is item, solution 6, but that the financing option goes back for a staff recommendation. That is an option. Okay, Councillor Fellner.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I mean, it would just seem to me that, you know, this is all pure speculation. Option 6, unless we can ascertain that we can buy the property that we need to put the road there. I'm wondering if the prudent thing might be, and this is certainly going to Councillor Moffat's point, will demonstrate to his constituents and to Councillor Coles that we're serious about fixing this hill, is to go and see about the land we need for the easement, and if it's available, buy it. Because I mean, without the land, we can't do anything. Why would we spend the engineering, you know, to design a final product if we can't put it where it's designed to go? You know, so that's just my thought. Just listening to the last things, that might be something to consider, winding that in somehow. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. Too many loose ends.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Collins. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with what Councillor Fellner just indicated. Without the property, you can't move on the project. However, you mentioned about the community engagement. Is this where you get a number, you got to get a commitment from a number of people to pay a portion of the cost associated with this? Is that correct?
As it's laid out on page 263 of your
That's fine.
agenda package.
We've been down that road before. And isn't there a 2/3? Don't you have to have a 2/3 mandate in order to get into a community engagement? We've been down that road. We've been down that road before in other places. It doesn't work well. So I would hate for this repair or reconstruction to rest on a community engagement, because I don't think it'll ever get done. I don't know if you agree with me, Councillor Moffat, but we got to give some direction here to staff to look seriously at option 6 and whether or not we can buy the property in order to accommodate option 6 and then move ahead. Otherwise, we're going to kick the can for another 5 years. Do you agree, Art? Yes, you do. Thank you.
Okay, last comment, Councillor Moffat.
I believe I still had the floor from before, Mayor. We can amend the resolution. I think it's an agreement that the majority would like to move forward with option 6. I think that the issue with the land can be worked into that resolution, and further follow-up is financing options. As I mentioned, Councillor Osborne, I don't think it's all or nothing. I think there are many options available that we can look at. So to speculate that something will not work is not in the best interest of anyone. So I would like to move forward with the resolution with inserting option 6 with exploratory discussion on the land acquisition and exploratory on the financing, please, to fill in the blanks. And I believe the resolution actually contemplated reviewing financing options. So all we're doing is inserting option 6 with the exploratory land acquisition.
Okay, just let me take a stab at this.
Thank you.
So the motion, okay. Okay, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve concept number 6 of the RHH engineering report dated November 24th for improving Ferris Hill Road with direction to explore land acquisition possibilities. Let me get this down. Direction. And then what it says now, and that council hereby approve financial analysis option blank of staff, what I would suggest, and that council requests staff come back with financial option recommendations.
Yep.
Are you comfortable with that, Jason? The clerk's gonna go nuts when he sees my writing. Hang on. Approve. Yeah. Okay, so I will try again. Okay. Do I have to get a new mover? Okay, so this is a motion by Rod Osborne and seconded by Terry Fellner. Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve concept number 6 of the RHH engineering report dated November 24th, 2021 for improving Ferris Road Hill with direction to explore land acquisition possibilities. And that council requests that staff come back to council with financing recommendations to improve Ferris Road. So that's the motion that's on the floor. We need a date.
I have one more question, Mayor.
Okay. Let me just ask the clerk, do we need a date? Do we have to have a date?
You don't have to because you're not deferring it, but you can certainly.
Worship members of council, I think we understand the sense of urgency in trying to move forward. We'll work to bring you back a resolution in due course. I don't want to make a commitment to January or February, especially if we're going to start talking about land. And that's going to require a bit of work. So perhaps my commitment at this point would be that we would provide you with an update in the first quarter of 2022, so that council's in the know as to what kind of progress we're making.
And Councillor Collins, do you have something to add?
Yes, I just noticed some of the figures here. Will this be tendered?
Yes.
There'll be a tender put out, and we're sure of these costs that is on this report?
These are done by a professional engineer with experience in this. Yes, these are realistic numbers.
Okay, good enough, Pete. Thanks.
Okay, so we have the motion on the floor. All in favor? Councillor Collins?
Okay.
You okay? All right. Okay, you better check my writing. The next one, we have a motion that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby appoint Councillor Terry Fellner as the council representative on the Township of Seguin Committee of Adjustments. As you saw in the staff report, this has to happen annually. So could I have a motion from Councillor Finson? Councillor Finson, can you move this?
Yeah, I couldn't hear you. I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Moffat.
I'll second that motion, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Just a question. Is everybody having trouble hearing me too?
You're just a little bit quiet for me.
I have no problem.
We have a
You,
telephone.
for me,
Yeah,
it
with new
just
equipment.
flowed out, in and out a little bit. But Jason's the worst. Jason will actually go, for me, he'll go dead halfway through his conversation.
Okay, well, we do have new equipment, so we will keep trying. All
Yeah,
in
I-
favor of putting Terry on the Committee of Adjustments for another year? Thank you. So I have a bylaw.
Mayor? May I? It's been 2.5 hours. I think we deserve a 5-minute.
Okay,
We've
Why
got to
don't we
wait.
just get out of this and then
We've got-
go and
we-
then have before the close, Rod? let's
We've
get
got a
this
ways
done.
to go. How much do you estimate in open, Mayor, left?
we have 4 bylaw issues to go quickly through, and then we take a break before we go into close.
Okay, I have to attend to a power issue, so I have to leave.
You're leaving or coming back? Okay, so I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-098, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an extension of covenant agreement between Timothy Crossman and Catherine Crossman and the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time in council. And could I have a motion from Councillor Cole
So move that motion, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
The second that, Mayor.
And I think this is explained in the staff report. It's really just an extension of timeline, isn't it?
Both of the next properties on Sandy. Action to look at an extension.
They can't hear you. Speak louder.
There were previously, the council approved that staff look at an extension of covenant agreements for 2 properties on Sandy Plains Road North. Council will recall they were running out of time to get the building permit processes underway. So this item and the next one, the parties are looking at an extension to that agreement.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Moffat, you have questions? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of extending the covenant on this one? Oh, that's a vote? Okay. Thank you. And then the next one is a motion that bylaw number 2021-103, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an extension of covenant agreement between Jennifer Lynn Lewis, Jennifer Phillips, and Michael Casey Lewis and the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I so move your motion, Mayor.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-091, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a fire dispatch agreement between the West Perry Sound Health Center and the Corporation of the Township of Seguin for the provision of communication services is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I'll second that motion.
Seen these before other years. All in favor? Two. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-099, being a bylaw to provide for a 2022 tax levy, to provide for the payment of taxes, and to provide for penalty and interest of 1.25% per month, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner
I so move.
and seconded by Councillor Collins?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Standard operating, thank you. And this is good news. I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-100, being a bylaw to appoint a building official, James Evans, for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion by Councillor Finson
I so move.
and seconded by Councillor Moffat?
I'll second that motion, Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Councillor Collins?
Yes, I'm in favor of all the motions. Yes.
And
All
I'd like
three.
to say welcome to James.
Yeah.
And we have another one, a motion that bylaw number 2021-102, being a bylaw to appoint a building official, Ken Piercy, for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner
So move.
and seconded by Councillor Collins?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Thank you, and welcome to Ken. Okay, do we want to take a break? Do we close this and then motion to go into closed, or do we have to do the motion on the close first?
So if you take a break right now, there's no close because there's a
Council report. So let's take a 5-minute break right now. So we'll come back at 7:15 for council report.
Anyone still in the meeting? Hello?
We're taking a break, Rod. 5 minutes.
Oh, I thought she said she wasn't. I've been on generator and the power came back on and then I lost my internet.
Yeah,
You
just
can
like,
give me all those now.
only one. Well, unless they need something counselor for. Oh.
Hey. Oh, what's going on?
Power's back on here at Turtle Lake. Power's back on. Have to shut off my generator. Lost the internet. Oh my God. Welcome to the wilderness.
Going like this. It's really nice.
Counselor Vincent talking? Yep.
I'm back.
Okay. We have council reports. So Gail, since you're here, can you start? Oh, you're muted. Gail, I need you to unmute.
So I just muted myself now. I was, anyway, I had one meeting, a museum meeting, which was long and interesting, but I've had quite a few calls from residents. Other than that, it's been fairly quiet, and I don't have too much more to say, but thank you.
Councillor Collins, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. Power's back on. Yeah, it's been pretty quiet since our last meeting, and really I don't have anything to say at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fellner.
Yeah, I was away for most of the time between the two meetings, so I didn't attend the library board meeting. But we were able to complete a significant amount of the work that we hoped to this year on the trail. We engaged some local contractors that were willing to come in on the weekend with support. Public Works Department, I'd say we got about 85% of what we wanted to get done. We pulled, basically stopped the 1st of December because we were starting to hurt more than we were helping with the soft conditions. So, but in pretty good shape for the winter, and a real good place to start next spring. So I'm pretty happy about that. So that's about it in my world. So.
Great, and I see you getting regular compliments on Facebook and stuff on the condition of the trail. So congratulations for all the work you did do.
Oh, yeah, right.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. I've had no meetings in the last 2 weeks. Some phone calls from Humphrey, obviously. And I'd like to comment on the staff Christmas get-together. It was as fun as it could be given the COVID circumstances. And I got to know who that young lady on the ice was that was such a good hockey player. I suspect it was Brady. I don't know if was it Brady? She is good.
Yes, I believe so.
Anyway, even though I had a few upsets, it was fun. I'm glad I did it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Cole.
Oh, thanks. How do you guys rate to not have anything to do between council meetings? Never stops. November 22nd, I had a Belvedere Finance Committee meeting, and as you heard previously, Belvedere's finances are in really good shape, which is benefiting all of us. November the 29th, meeting with the West Prairie Sound Health Center board chairs and some of their members over a couple of issues. We were trying to construct a 3P presentation for the hospital board members as a way of delivering the new long-term care home. They felt that they couldn't participate in a presentation, so we had to cancel it, and we're doing it another way, the same thing, but we are doing it. December the 1st, we had an ad hoc committee meeting to review the application that's going to the ministry, and we're expecting now to have a response from the minister's office and to have some further information and decisions by December the 20th. So it's all happening very quickly. It's kind of exciting. Then today I had a meeting with the Belvedere chair and a couple of our board members over strategizing around how we deal with the life lease, because that's a bit of a separate issue from the long-term care and something that we have to manage going forward. the hope is that we convert the life lease to rentals and it becomes a seniors residence on the property as part of the campus of care. That's the objective. So, and then the other thing that's kind of exciting is that we continue to have issues around the Blue Lake Road easement that we put across to Mr. Naughton's cottage. And that one will not go away. I won't say too much more about that right now, but we're investigating that. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. Back on the 16th of November, I had a Foley Recreation Committee meeting. We have breakfast with Santa scheduled for this weekend on the 11th at the Foley Community Center. You have to pre-register, but that's a go. And just as a reminder, we also have the Santa Skate on the Sunday, the 12th. So maybe Councillor Osborne can get the blades going again. Another meeting on the 18th with regards to the Integrated Community Energy and Climate Action Plan. Transportation Committee Action Group meeting on the 26th. 2 meetings with the Muskoka Watershed Council. One is as treasurer, and that was a morning to sort out their finances. We've had some challenges, and then we had a full council meeting that afternoon. Like Councillor Osborne and Vincent and Mayor Osborne, I attended the Christmas party. I did not have my skates. It's probably a good thing for Councillor Osborne. Also, we have this Seguin Sparkles Holiday Light Tour and Contest, and I am one of the judges of that. So hopefully people are decorating their homes and getting in touch with Dominique to get their places up for review. So that is, oh, sorry, that's not true. I've received several calls over the last week. There is a planning matter that is brewing significantly in my ward. I've reached out to staff about it to try to make sure that they're abreast of what's going on, and continue to gather some information, trying to nip something in the bud based on current information, but we're still getting all the facts. But over the last week, I've probably received half a dozen calls on it, and I actually have to circle back with Councillor Coles on it this week. So that is all for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. November 29th was the West Perry Sound Health Center board with the municipal leaders, where they bring us up to date. Art alluded to it, and Art was one of the presenters on the Belvedere issues. On the 30th, we had an airport operations meeting. Also that evening was this Perry Sound Economic Collaborative, which meets twice a year, and I happen to be the chair of it, and James Cox presented, and John Fiore from Archipelago reviewed progress made, and there will be minutes, I'm assuming, of your future council packages. Many of us watched that evening the Perry Sound council meeting to watch them discuss the MZO, and I think Jamie Robinson highlighted the issues that he didn't believe they had the correct facts on. It was a little bit of an embarrassment to me that the way they went at it without many of the facts. So once we post all the information, I believe they will have answers to it. And then I want to do a shout out for the staff Christmas party. Dominique and her team did a fantastic job of organizing as best they could the food and the community center, and I think people had a good time even if they didn't skate. There were lots of skating to watch, and even the spectators were enjoying the skating display. But yes, Brady has her office decorated in hockey paraphernalia, and that's what she was on Halloween. I think she was a Seguin hockey player on Halloween. So she loves the sport and spends a lot of her time on it. So she's a skater and a hockey player. That's my report. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the board and committee minutes and agendas and the correspondence as presented on the agenda and the addendum for the December 6, 2021 meeting of council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Finson
I so move.
and seconded by Councillor Moffat?
I'll second that motion, Mayor.
All in favor? Two. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin hereby proceed to a closed meeting at 7:24 p.m. in order to address matters pertaining a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition and by the municipality of local board, a trade secret or scientific, technical, financial, or labor relations information, which is supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, personal matters about an identifiable individual, labor relations or employee negotiations, and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals. So could I have a motion from Coles?
Also move, Mayor. Thanks.
By Councillor Osborne?
I second that.
All in favor of moving into closed?